Hello class, welcome back. So in our previous class we were discussing chapter 10, nutrition. We went through the few terminology like what is nutrition, what is food, what is diet, what do you mean by balanced diet, right? Like we have discussed in our previous class too, that food consists of different chemical components. Those are referred to as nutrients, and those nutrients has different purposes in our body. So we discussed that basically there are 5 major classes of nutrients. What are those? Carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins and minerals, right? So in today's class, let us take in detail about each one of those, okay? First let us discuss about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, what is their function? The carbohydrates, they are energy providing, right? So these carbohydrates are broken down in order to provide energy, okay? The only form of carbohydrates which is used by the cells in our body is generally, what is it? It's a glucose, okay? So you know the general formula of a glucose, right? What is it? C6H12O6, right? It's a general formula of a glucose. So what can you see there? What are the different chemical components which is making up the glucose? Carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. So your carbohydrates is made up of carbon, hydrogen and oxygen. Okay, now if you look at hydrogen and oxygen, they just like water, they are always in the ratio of 2:1. Okay, hydrogen and oxygen in carbohydrates are always in the ratio of 2:1. Okay, now further your carbohydrates can be divided into 2 types: simple carbohydrates and complex carbohydrates. Okay, now your simple carbohydrates are also referred to as sugar. Okay, commonly you call it also as a sugar. Now your simple carbohydrates can be broken down, can be further divided. What are they? Monosaccharides and disaccharides. Mono, the name itself is telling you mono means one and saccharides means sugar. So it is made up of only one sugar unit. Okay, what are the example? Example are your glucose, fructose and galactose. These are the example of your monosaccharides. Glucose, we all know that it's only fueling elements of our body. That means glucose is broken down in order to produce energy. Okay, so and another one, glucose is found in fruits, vegetables and all those. And another one example of monosaccharides is your fructose. Fructose, it's the sweetest sugar present, okay, and it is present in different fruits. That's why it's also referred to as a fruit sugar. Okay, and the nectar of different flower, the sweetness that you get is also because of the fructose. Okay, so it is present in the nectar and different types of fruit. It's one of the sweetest sugar. Then you have galactose. Galactose is a milk sugar. It is present in different dairy products. Okay, so you just go through the example and where it is present. Okay, you just have to go through that. Then another simple sugar is a disaccharide. Di means 2. So this sugar is made up of 2 sugar units. Okay, in case of monosaccharide only 1 sugar unit is present. In case of disaccharides 2 sugar unit is present. So the example of disaccharides, these are the examples. So what are the example of disaccharides? You have sucrose, you have maltose and you have lactose. Okay, now sucrose, it's a table sugar. Okay, it is present in different kind of plants. Okay, we can concentrate and then keep it. That's why the table sugar that you use every day for tea, coffee, that's a sucrose. Now your sucrose is made up of glucose and fructose. Okay, your sucrose is made up of glucose and fructose. You have to know the composition, just the composition and where is it present. Okay, now another one is maltose. Now maltose, it's generally it's hardly present in most of the things, but this maltose is present more in amount in sprouting grains. Okay, sprouting grains means the grains through which grains which are sprouting, in those grains you have maltose, more maltose contained. Okay, other types, other fruits or other vegetables, this maltose are generally not present, and maltose is also used in brewing industry. Okay, now your maltose is made up of 2 glucose unit. Okay, now another example is lactose. Lactose, we know it is present in milk and different dairy products. So your lactose is made up of glucose and galactose. Okay, the monosaccharides, that's galactose, generally they are present in combination with the glucose only. Okay, they are hardly present as a monosaccharides. Okay, they are generally linked up with the glucose. They are generally linked up with the glucose and then present in different plants. Okay, so you have simple sugar. What are those? Monosaccharides and disaccharides. You should know the example of it and where is it present. Okay. Now next is your complex sugar, complex carbohydrate. It's polysaccharide. Polysaccharides means you have more than 3 units of sugar. When you have more than 3 units of sugar, then you refer to it as a polysaccharides. The example of polysaccharides are your starch, cellulose and glycogen. Okay, like in case of plants, as we know that glucose are soluble in water, it easily gets dissolved. So the excess amount of glucose, if it has to be stored, then it is, in case of plants, it is converted into starch and then it is stored, because starch is a insoluble sugar, it does not get dissolved. Okay, so it is converted into starch. It is present in different potatoes, wheat, bread, you have starch contained. Okay, so your glucose in case of plants is converted into the starch and then stored. Okay, another one is your cellulose. Cellulose, it forms a cell wall in plants. It is not digestible in case of human beings, but it helps in improving the bowling effect. That means it provides as a roughage. Okay, so that digestion becomes easier. Okay, next one is your glycogen. Glycogen, like I told you, the glucose that is produced within a human body is like all other glucose, it's also soluble, so it has to be converted and then stored. So your glucose is converted into glycogen and then it is stored in liver or in muscles. Okay, in liver or in muscles. Okay, so that it can be utilized later on. Okay, so this starch, glycogen, glucose are all these are glucose units only linked with each other, just the structure of linkage is different. Okay, so that's all about carbohydrates, the first nutrients which acts as a fueling agent in all the human animals. Okay, plants, okay, they act as a fueling agent because breaking down of these sugars only helps in production of the energy. In our humans, we generally prefer glucose. Glucose is all the sugar has to be first broken down into glucose, only then it can be utilized by the cell. So that's all about carbohydrates. Next we will take up with the fats.